In Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, the Duergar or Underdwarves are a race of subterranean dwarves described as similar to their other dwarf kin but with grey or purple-hued skin. They're typically skinner than the average dwarf and are almost always bald or with very little hair. In previous editions, the Duergar were often said to follow a god specific to their subrace, who they believed had created them to be the perfect mortal being, and therefore the divine rulers of all life. In the Forgotten Realms of 5th edition, the Duergar are descendants of Clan Duergar, who in ancient times chose the dwarven god Ladugar as their prime deity, and refused to follow any others. This led them to splintering off from the majority of the dwarven progenitor race, and then they headed underground deep into the Underdark, where they were unfortunately enslaved and warped by the Illithids or Mind Flayers. Over the eons, some broke free and established kingdoms beneath the earth, where they grew proud, bitter, and isolated. This led some of them to turn to darker magics and worship in order to stay alive and on top of the food chain. The standard Duergar has an AC of 16, which includes scale mail and a shield. They have 26 hit points and a speed of 25 feet, and have moderate stats and a resistance to poison damage. They have the trait Duergar Resilience, in which they have advantage on saves against poison, spells, illusions, and any effects that might charm or paralyze them, possibly due to their ancestors' pasts with the Mind Flayers. They also have sunlight sensitivity, in which they have disadvantage on perception checks and attack rolls when in direct sunlight. In combat, they can use the action Enlarge, which lasts for 1 minute. Their size goes up to large, and they double their damage dice rolls on strength-based weapon attacks. Plus, they gain advantage on strength checks and saving throws. They have a war pick that has a +4 to hit, dealing 1d8 plus 2 damage, a potential of 3 to 10, or 2d8 plus 2 damage, a potential of 4 to 18 if enlarged. They have a javelin that also has a +4 to hit, and a range of 30 accurate or 120 inaccurate, dealing 1d6 plus 2 damage or 2d6 plus 2 damage if enlarged, potentials of 3 to 8 or 4 to 14 respectively. The Duergar can also use their action to go invisible until it attacks, uses a spell, or uses Enlarge, or until its concentration is broken. Barring all of that, this ability can last up to 1 hour. As a DM, I would use the Duergar as a strike team or warband type creature, making sure that there are always at least the same number of them as there are player levels. If, for example, you have a party of 4 level 4s, I would throw 16 of them at the party to make it a hard encounter. I would have the Duergar swarm players, targeting ranged spellcasters and healers first, seeking to overwhelm their targets. From here, I would simply beat down the players one by one, but if combat seems to be sliding into the party's favor, I would have the Duergar still alive cast invisibility and slip away to attack the party later, perhaps when they're trying to take a long rest. The Underdark is a dangerous place after all. We've covered the general dwarven mythology on this channel before, and the dwarves as a mythological or fantasy concept exist in almost all cultures, so this video would be about a week long if I tried to talk about all of them. However, the Duergar are kind of a special case, as they have a specific root in mythology. The Simonside dwarves, also known as the Brownmen, Boggles, or Duergar, were an ancient English folklore race of dwarves associated with the Simonside Hills of Northumberland in northern England. They were described as short, stocky creatures that delighted in leading travelers astray after dark, particularly into bogs and marshes, using lamps in a similar fashion to the will-o'-the-wisp. They were said to be harmed by sunlight, and therefore they would always disappear by dawn. The term Duergar also has Nordic roots, as the Old Norse word for dwarf is Vurgur, with a silent D at the front, but the root could also be from Germanic, Dutch, or other languages, as their versions for the word dwarf are quite similar, though Norse is the only one with the AR suffix. In comparing the monster to the myth, we find that the D&D monster has been based on the Simonside dwarves in appearance only. Both are short, stocky, darker dwarves who live away from the sun. Everything else, like their backstory, their connections to dark magic and mind flayers, and their hatred of the other races, can be entirely attributed to the creators of Dungeons & Dragons. If you enjoyed that video, please leave a like and comment below, and consider subscribing to the channel. You can also join the Patreon for $1 a month, link in the description below, to access videos days before they're posted here, as well as other exclusive stuff like short stories, videos, and more.